What's going on, everybody? We're here with episode 2 of the Hoopsimple podcast. I'm Cameron Moore. We got Dove Khan. On this episode, we got a legend on our hands, Mr. Will the Thrill Robinson. So just to give you guys a quick little background on Will, he played AU for both YNE and Toronto Terror for a bit there. Tried to get him for prep. He had some other plans, and he just finished his first year at McGill University over there in Montreal, playing in the RSEC. So Will, thanks for jumping on. Happy to have you.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I'm excited.
Let's jump right into it. So tell us a little bit about your journey and sort of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I started playing basketball in about grade 7 and 8, middle school. That's when I started to really take it seriously. I played for like CBA outside of my middle school team, and then in high school I bounced around a bit, but I ended up playing for you guys in the summers. And then I played at Ridley College for my grade 12 and my fifth year, where I graduated from, and then now I'm here at McGill in my first year playing. So. Yeah, it's been a bit of a ups and downs journey, but I ended up where I wanted to, so it worked out through support and help from guys like you and my other coaches at Ridley, like Vic. So yeah.
Super good stuff. Always a pleasure, of course, Will. Just wanted to talk about just U Sports versus other options. That because I know you had a couple other directions you could have gone. You were talking to a D3 in high school. I was just wondering your thoughts on U Sports as an option for Canadians versus going to the States.
Yeah, so my approach, I didn't have too many offers coming out of my last year. I had a couple D3s and then some U Sports, but really McGill was my really serious U Sport. And half the battle for me was academics and where I wanted to go from an educational and academic perspective. So McGill worked out really well. I got into the program that I wanted to. So that was a big part of my decision-making process. But I guess from a basketball perspective, I think that U Sports basketball is better than the D3 options. Because the regulation in D3 is a lot stricter. They can't really like practice in the summers and they have a lot of like kind of weird rules where U Sports is like more comparable, if not like more lenient practice wise to D1 schedules. And you play more games and you get more exposure like nationwide in Canada. So yeah, that was a big reason for why I went esports over
We,
D3.
we talked in the David Papa episode about guys sort of like yourself who want to stay local and focus and prioritize their academics. And I know your family was very academics forward, so it makes a lot of sense that you ended up at a good school like McGill. Would you have considered going U Sports if you didn't feel like the academics were there? If that was the case, would you have taken more of a basketball approach to your recruiting?
So yeah, I guess academics aside, um, well, for me, that's just like that's not the case. But in David's example, well, just looking at himself, I mean, his goal is to play Division 1 basketball and eventually make a living playing basketball, which is
Yeah.
slightly different in my career path and like where my goals are oriented right now. But I think for him and guys that are looking to go pro, especially, I just saw like the JUCO eligibility now doesn't like take away your D1 eligibility. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean.
Well, we will correct you in a minute, but continue.
Yeah. There's a ton of money in D1 and eventually after, so I can see why a lot of guys are trending to go down that path, especially considering like there's guys on my team who I've talked with who like a lot of our friends are playing JUCO and they have like everything covered financially, which is different than the U Sports option. So the guys that are really looking to go pro or go to Division 1 and then also have everything paid for, it's obviously a very good option compared to esports.
Right. So just to jump back there, the current rule right now is if you are currently in your last year of eligibility, like this year, what is it, we 24, 25, and you had played JUCO previously, you get 1 year of extra eligibility at Division 1 only. That actually also applies to U Sports as well, I learned. So it just has to be a non-Division 1 level before this year, and this is your last year of eligibility. So that rule, and a lot of guys are posting this saying that JUCO doesn't count towards eligibility. It's not in place yet. So they're
Okay.
still deciding. It might come to that, but as of right now, no, that's not the case. But another question for you. What are your thoughts on the U Sports scholarship rules and sort of give us a breakdown of McGill's situation in the RSEC, what they can and can't do for our viewers that sort of don't have an understanding on the way it works there.
Yeah, so obviously the difference between U Sports and going to the States is a lot, I guess. There's a difference in like the financial landscape of how you can go about it. But with that being said, there's a lot of different ways that you can get scholarships that aren't directly associated with athletic scholarships, if that makes sense. So, like for me, I've applied to like there's a program in the RSET called like ALEO Foundation, and it's like a leadership scholarship where they can offer you like financial subsidies or like financial benefits if you do like a leadership course with them. And then in this application, you basically just have to have like a strong GPA and strong character to get chosen for this. And there's a ton of stuff that you can do in U Sports like that. Just like being like a U Sports all academic, you get a couple $1,000s and stuff like that. But it's all stuff that you have to do outside of just being on the basketball team, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's out of your own will to like apply and like have a good enough resume to qualify for these scholarships versus obviously at the D1 level and JUCO, it's like, okay, you're on the basketball team, here's your full scholarship. So that's a bit different. And then in terms of what McGill can offer, I think, well, I can't speak on like behalf of McGill, but what I can speak on is in the RSEC, I know that you can offer full scholarships, and also with through like AFAs and other things, but I don't have a great understanding of that. But what I do know is that in the RSEC, well, similar to me, if I was in Ontario, uh, Quebec education is a lot cheaper. So it's not like for the people that are in school, like coming to McGill from Quebec, tuition is it's something that isn't as steep of a price as American universities are for Canadians going to America with no scholarship, or even just Americans trying to maybe walk onto a school like a D1 or a D2, D3. So financially, obviously it's like getting a scholarship in the States is, you hit the jackpot, but there are ways you can navigate the U Sports world to get your education paid for, especially with sports.
That's sort of an underrated thing I feel like the guys don't talk about a lot is that obviously if you're getting a full ride to the States, you're paying hopefully $0, right? So that's great. But if you don't have that, a partial at a American school relative to how expensive American university tuition is oftentimes going to be more money than a partial at a Canadian just
Yeah.
because of how little money Canadian universities charge relative to American ones. And I just wanted to add one thing. Will said they were giving full scholarship just for the kids at home. When he says that, he means full tuition and compulsory fees, uh, which is what Canadian schools are at a maximum allowed to provide. So uh, it's definitely an interesting landscape. And Cam, I was wondering, we were talking with Dave about something similar, just sort of your thoughts on situations where guys would justifiably say, I should be U Sports instead of Division 1, financially speaking.
Yeah, I mean, really, in my opinion, the only scenario that makes sense is if you live close to said U Sports school. Like, say I'm a Toronto kid and I
Mhm.
want to go to either TMU or U of T where I don't need to pay for the housing. Or say if I lived in Montreal already and I want to go to McGill, I could see that making sense.
Right.
Or, I mean, if your family just has the money to begin with, I understand the academic component, But I think for most guys, if your goal is simply just to try and get to the highest level of basketball, college specifically, which is Division One,
Yep.
I think the better way to do that is through JUCO, not even just because they give full scholarships, just simply because more guys go JUCO to D1 than U Sports to D1.
Right. And that's not only total players, but also per capita, right? Per the number
Yes,
of
yes,
players.
yeah, 100%.
Right. That, I mean, yeah, that's sort of difficult to argue with. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh,
actually, I have a question about that because I know you guys know everything about the eligibility stuff. Is it how comparable is the U Sport like going D1 from U Sport? Let's say you're in like your third year. Do you still have like a year or two left at D1 or how does that? Because I know a couple guys
Yeah,
transferred last
so
year.
this I was talking about this with somebody the other day actually. So in U Sports, as you know, if I transfer U Sports to U Sports, I gotta sit out a year. But what doesn't make sense is if I'm going U Sports to Division One, I'm able to play right away. I mean, obviously there hasn't been a lot of guys, despite what they're trying to say. But the guys that do it, it's like, wait, how does that make sense? I can transfer down south and play immediately, but in my own country, I have to sit out a year. So, but to answer your question, yeah, it's whatever. If you're say third year up here, you just finished and I go D1. Yeah, I'm gonna be in my fourth year down there too. And I can play right away. So it does make sense for guys in U Sports to try and get down to play Division One.
right.
Um, I just think it's happening a lot less than they're
Yeah.
trying to make it seem.
I've got one sort of underrated element to this debate, which I think is that if you're not a highly touted prospect that's going to the States, like for example, let's say you're going to a mid-level JUCO, maybe on a full ride, but you're not going to maybe the biggest program per se. Something that's underrated, especially for Toronto guys, and I see it a lot, is just simply the bureaucracy of getting yourself there.
Mm,
So a lot of the times, like let's say, I mean, if you're Vashon Alette and you're heading down to Old Dominion, they're going to figure out what you need to have figured out to make sure you get there. But let's say you're going to a smaller junior college and you're a less known player, maybe they don't have the best
easy.
international admissions
Yeah, yeah,
office to make
right.
sure that you can actually get down there. And I've seen kids who don't make it to play college basketball only because they were trying to get their visa and they don't really have the computer skills or whatever they need to deal with the bureaucratic side of things. And that is actually one other minor advantage to U Sports is that there's a little bit less red tape to get yourself there.
Yeah, well, the other one more thing I'll say to that is there's some schools like we had a junior college last year. I'm not gonna say which school it was, but they offered three of our guys, right?
Mhm.
And then as we were going through the process, one of the guys actually was looking into going there. And then
Right.
turns out the school can't even take international guys. So he's just wasting everybody's time. He's throwing out a scholarship he doesn't even have, right? So there's a part of that too that's kind of tricky to navigate depending on the school.
Mhm. And ultimate takeaway from this whole convo is just simply that money is the number one factor in recruiting, and basketball skill really is only the number one factor for the elite of elite. Moving on, we want to talk about the narrative that just is buzzing, especially in this most recent off season, which is that if you go U Sports is like the new JUCO, and that's going to get you Division One. By go take a year at U Sports, stay home, and they'll get you Division One. I wanted to know, Will, your thoughts on how real that is, and just what you're seeing and hearing, because I know you have a lot of friends and acquaintances playing at that level. Just tell me a little bit more about what's really going on inside U Sports regarding that narrative.
Okay, yeah. So I think in U Sports, I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but there are a lot of really talented basketball players that are like hidden from, in high school recruitment. Maybe they weren't the tallest guy at their position, or they didn't have a good enough 3-point shot for D1s to, but then they develop a couple years in U Sports, and like I think there legit are quite like a handful of guys that can play Division 1 in U Sports. Um, but that narrative I think is new, just seeing success of guys like, I see on my phone like Malcolm Christie and like guys of that nature that are doing well at the D1 level. Um, I think right now, even yesterday, just after the CBL draft, like that's even like I guess I don't know what the word is right now, but that's like similar to D1. That's like a pro level that you
Right,
can go
right,
to in U Sports that is really
right.
good for like your basketball development. But the U Sports does offer opportunities to do things with your basketball career, but I don't fully know how many guys are going to transfer D1 after this year. But I'm only in my first year, so I don't know too much about the older guys. But yeah, I think that hopefully for Canadian basketball, we can get guys going D1 and make this like a foundation, like a JUCO to do it. But right now it is definitely in the earlier years and earlier stages of that kind of development. But I'm not against hyping up Canadian basketball or U Sports. Um, yeah, for guys going to the next level because I do think a lot of guys deserve that opportunity.
Right.
My question would be, do you think it affects the integrity of the game in U Sports to treat it like a transitionary level like JUCO? Are you going to have a little bit more selfish style of play, more guys focused on their film, if you push that narrative?
Yeah, well, as I said, there's like things like the CBL, which you guys could probably do a better job explaining than me to the audience. But I think that guys are still working towards their film, and I think at every level you play at, except maybe if you're an all-star in the NBA, you're playing for your film for the next level, the next paycheck, the next scholarship opportunity. So that doesn't really, I guess, like render for me. But what does is that if guys are just gonna go to U Sports for a year, then leave, then is U Sports just a one and done? Is it just a two and done? Are guys just trying to chase that next spot, that next location to play basketball? Because U Sports isn't offering enough. That could be an issue, like in the long run. But that's also an issue in the South right now with like D1s, everybody's transferring every year. There's like what, 700 guys in the
Yeah,
portal
yeah.
or something crazy. So it's already a problem. If the problem like has a ripple effect over to U Sports, I wouldn't be surprised.
Mhm.
But I think generally, if there's a place and a foundation for guys to go D1, U Sports isn't a terrible option.
Right. Cam, what do you think is the reason why we can't keep kids in Canada if you had to pick one thing? And I know what you're going to say. I'm just wanting you to talk about it.
I mean, it's simply just scholarships. Like there's no two ways about it.
Benjamins.
And it's unfortunate because the way they've set up that partnership with the CBL, where they have to take, certain number of U Sports guys. Now they've even introduced CCAA, which me and Dove were talking about yesterday, actually, because I saw that draft as well. They actually have a really cool setup going. The problem is they're just so stingy. Like they don't want to give full scholarships. It's not that they can't. They could do it literally today. They just don't care about athletics in the same way. But if they were smart, they would realize, hey, if we actually pump our athletics programs, whether it's basketball, football, whatever sport, this will actually get more eyes on the university and in the long run make us more money. But they don't seem to realize that and ultimately don't care. So then our top talent, like I think it's stupid to even suggest, hey, U Sports is a path to D1 because a few years ago they were trying to compete with Division ones. They're like, hey, we're just as good as the D1. Let's try and keep our talent home. Now that's like they've totally ditched that and they're just like, okay, well now we're basically a junior college. It's like if you actually think about it, they should be on the same level. They're both 4-year schools and the highest level in their respective countries. And for years and years and years, Division ones have been coming up to play different U Sports teams in preseason, and a lot of times they would actually lose. Obviously, it's a little bit different now, but the the talent just keeps leaving. Some of them do end up coming back when they fail at that level, but for the most part, I mean, if we just have scholarships, the level would get better instantly. So,
These
Yeah,
dudes,
sorry, go for
go
it,
ahead,
Dove.
go ahead, Will.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you guys about what you think level compare. I know JUCO, it's like there's a really like wide scale. I mean, same as U Sports, but like level compare wise, like the top JUCOs versus the top U Sports versus mid-pack JUCO and mid U Sports, how that compares because a ton of guys do transfer back from
yeah,
JUCO to U Sports.
that's a really good question, and it opens the floor for some hot takes. So I like that. Me, I will say U Sports, your top U Sports school, like say your top 10 schools, could compete with low D1s, but say your average U Sports team, I would say is comparable to your average Division 2 team. Your top JUCOs as well would beat majority of U Sports schools. But again, like every level, I mean, U Sports included, there's a real fall off. Your top 10 teams are pretty good. And then after that, it's like, ooh, like we get really bad. And it's the same thing at the Division 2 level, Division 1 level too, even, right? Like who just won it? Florida versus I think the worst team this year was Canisius or like Chicago State, something like that. And like those are like 50, 60 point differences, right? So it's really hard to compare levels because there's levels within the levels.
Yeah,
But your
for sure.
top JUCO teams would beat most U Sports, in my opinion. And same with your Division 2s and your Division 1s.
And the Canadian social media basketball guys, fourth quarter in the fourth and persevere, those sort of guys, obviously doing their job promoting Canada hoops, but they're pushing a narrative of Canada having these different like quality features that should keep Canadians around. And it's like you can push those narratives all you want, in my opinion, but why are we not just calling it what it is and saying, hey, let's pay the players here. Let's get the kids paid because they're working their butts off. And I mean, it's just sort of, I don't know, it seems like a cop out classic Canadian thing to just try and be like, hey, no, what we're doing over here, it's really great, guys. Don't worry about the fact that they're giving full rides down in the States. Let's just act like this is just as good because that'll make us feel like kids should be staying and not leaving. It's like, no, go get your money, get out of here. Will, on the other hand, is someone who it makes complete sense to stay in Canada, his situation. But I just wish that Canada did a better job of taking care of kids like Will. You know what I mean? Because I saw how hard he worked, and I think he deserves that big money too. So, whatever. Moving on. What do we got, Cam?
Yeah, so Will, I want to hear your biggest regret in your basketball career.
Yeah, so honestly, this is gonna sound, I guess, well, my biggest regret, I'd say, is the overcomplication of like watching things on my phone, like how to train, how to take care of my body, how to rest, how to recover, how to do all of these things that honestly can be simplified so much. And literally, basketball is something, first of all, I want to say training your mind and like having like an emotional maturity to handle making mistakes, first of all wasn't a big issue for me like earlier on in my career. Like just letting my mind and my mental strength, like if I made a mistake, or a bad turnover, like letting that affect the game for me. But outside of just that, I think that's just a maturity thing, like just growing up as like a person. But from a basketball perspective, strictly, like I would do everything, like do the most, like every program I tried it out. I didn't just stick to what could make me the best basketball player possible. Like just literally for me in high school, looking back, just shooting, ball handling, playing runs, and like in those runs specifically going into them, like saying, okay, I'm gonna work on this, I'm gonna get better at this.
Right.
Versus doing a bunch of these like, crazy drills that you see, all these like oh, this is the best way for your knee to recover or this and that versus just literally like getting on a basic program that gets your body right and builds consistency and builds the habits rather than just going from program to program and trying to figure out this new way to get 40-inch vertical. Just like squat, stretch and recover and like do like all these exercises that have been around for so long. Um, so yeah, I'd say really just like simplifying my training regime, building routine, building good habits, and then on top of that, just really like testing your brain and going into training with that mindset like, okay, I just messed up a drill, but I'm not gonna like get down on myself. I'm gonna get into that next rep and let that translate to if things happen during a game that don't go as well as expected. So yeah,
So safe to say you'd be suggesting to the viewers that they should hoop simple.
yeah, hoop simple for sure.
Love it, Will.
Very good. Last one, and I absolutely agree. We got to be careful of those IG trainers.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
dangerous, debilitating disease that's running through Instagram right now, hurting kids like maybe Will at one point before he was training the right way. Uh, Last question for you here. Don't want to keep you long. Know you're a busy guy. St. Laurent's calling your name. Uh, we want to talk about the best advice that you could give to a kid that wants to get to the level that you found a way to get yourself to in your career.
Yeah, so honestly this question is I can transition it a bit from last question. Um wait, can you just repeat that question one more time? Sorry, Dove.
Just your best advice for a kid who's trying to get to where you've gotten yourself as a basketball player.
Yeah, so my advice would just be like, it sounds a bit cliche, but like just every day do something that can make you like 1% better, or at least like push you in the direction that you see yourself going like in the long run. So like I remember Dove, I was having a really hard time like after my grade 11 and my grade 12 year, and you like sent me this like photo of like, like compound interest basically, like 1% better every day towards a certain goal, towards a certain number versus like not doing anything. And that really stuck with me. Looking back at my high school career and even like going into university, like I was never a highly recruited guy or prospect, but I kind of just stuck with it. And I think that that's a big thing, especially at the U Sports level. Obviously at D1, if you're like not if you're not a superstar, you're not going D1 out of high school. But if you can find your way on a U Sports team, a JUCO team, whatever the case may be, and you can just stick with it and work towards the goal that you want, I think that'd be my advice. Just every day, just do something that'll make you better, and in the long run, it'll pay off. So, yeah. And then also, at the end of this podcast, I just want to shout out Dove and Cam, because as I said, I was having a really hard time with my basketball career, but these guys, they simplified it for me. They developed my jumper to a point where like it was just exponential growth, and yeah, everything you guys have done for me, I appreciate it. So,
Love it.
Means
thank
a
you.
lot.
We
Means
appreciate
a
you.
lot. We appreciate you.
So that's it for us. That's all our questions, Will. We appreciate you jumping on, my man. Appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
time.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We will be back next Friday with a pretty good guest. We're excited about this one.
We'll keep that one under wraps.
Will, thanks once again,
Thanks,
buddy,
Will.
and
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
till
it.
next time.
Yep.
See ya.